everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies! Hey!
We're back at it again, having a lot of fun here in the world of Geek Buddies, and we're coming to you on a Thursday rather than a Friday because of scheduling situations. And don't adjust your set. That is not Michael's new background. He's in a different city, and we'll have that discussion as we go along. But we got a lot to get into here today. Got some trailers, got some Marvel 1943 stuff to break down and talk about. We've got some X-Men, first two episodes, X-Men 97 stuff to review as well, and a return of an old favorite segment that'll be coming back later on in this show for sure. But first, let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, and I decided to say, fuck it, and I moved to San Francisco. So now I live in San Francisco, and this is my new home. No, I didn't really move. I'm just here for a couple days, but I'm staying at my friend's house, and she has quite the setup. It is if I could give you guys the tour, I would. It is wild up here. She has a secret. She has a secret door behind a bookshelf that goes into her metal shop where she makes giant sculptures for Burning Man. So I'm in a room with a secret bookshelf. That's all. So I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, Shannon.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, and I'm in the place I've been since January of 2022. I don't think there's any secrets. I really hope not. But there is a way in this closet right here. There's a door to an attic space that I wasn't aware that we had until I had to put the box for my PS5 up. And I asked my wife, I'm like, hey, what is that? She's like, I don't know. She lives here 20 years. I hope there's nobody up there.
I feel like that's how.
Yeah. I think that's the beginning of the new Alien trailer.
For sure. All right, well, there we go. That's where that's everybody who is here for the show. We're gonna have some fun talking about all of this. So for those of you who are new to the show, the way it works is each of us brings up some geek news items. We talk about it amongst ourselves, take some breaks in between, and getting to our main geek news item, and that's going to be our review of the first two episodes of X-Men 97, which will be coming up later on in the show. But Shannon McClung, I think you got us to start this whole thing off, so take it away, my man.
I do, with some trailers, and one, as we were recording, dropped about an hour ago. So very, very exciting. Our first looks at House of the Dragon Season 2. They released two trailers. One was called the green trailer from the Hightower point of view. The second trailer is the black trailer from the Targaryen point of view. So, this show was able to shoot during the strike because their actors were not members of SAG. So they were able to still shoot over there in Europe. And the looks that we got of this from both trailers, it's more of what we got from the first season. Everything just looks really, really well done. And with this second season, they are not doing the time jumps. That it is the cast that we ended season 1 with, and that's the cast that we're going all the way through season 2. Again, if you, I know Game of Thrones probably lost a few viewers with that last season, but from season 1, I think the three of us would agree it gained a lot of viewers back. I mean, House of the Dragon, thus far, the storytelling has been fantastic. And if the first two trailers that we got are any indication of what we're going to get the second season, hopefully more are going to come back because it looks great. So I will throw it over to you gentlemen first. Mikey, what did you think of our first looks at House of the Dragon Season 2?
First of all, that a creative team knows what they're doing when they drop two trailers from two perspectives. Like they get what's working about their show. So first of all, just right off the bat, the fact that we get the black trailer, the green trailer, it's like, we know what we're getting into. They know what we're getting into. The expectation is building. And watching these trailers, I had the same thought of what you just mentioned, which is, I think Game of Thrones as a geek brand has had one of the biggest nosedives in recent memory as far as geek culture goes. I mean, and a dramatic nosedive, not like, oh, we slowly got bored over this, we got fatigued, like a dramatic, we love this show, it's the best thing on TV, holy shit, you disappointed me, how could you break my heart? And the fact that one season of House of the Dragon really, I know for the three of us and for a lot of people, doesn't forgive that final season of Game of Thrones, but it does get us reinvested in Westeros in a major way. Like, they have kind of pulled an amazing hat trick. And watching both of these trailers and just getting excited about the she said vibe of like two women that are very confident that they are right. So confident that they rip Westeros apart. I am stoked. I am so excited for the return, which is something I remember even when we were talking about the House of the Dragon season 1 trailers, we were like, maybe like it looks good. I'll check it out, but I don't know. And now I'm fully back on board, which thank you for that.
Johnny, House Targaryen, House Hightower, which way you leaning?
I guess I go Targaryen because Alicent Hightower completely heard what she wanted to hear, and I'm not a fan of people like that. So I like the fact that here's a father and a daughter, and it was clear that the daughter was bequeathed the throne, and this woman heard what she wanted to hear, and now we're all going to hell in a handbasket. So let me say, both of the, as Michael said, incredibly smart to understand this is a civil war. So in a civil war, you want to show both sides of what their points of views are, which gets you really excited as a fan to understand that you're in the right hands and you're going to see some really cool action. And you're going to be challenged as a viewer about which side of the fence you're on, depending on who is committing what actions. And we clearly see Hightower's children, they are like all about this stuff and they're getting more and more evil. But then on the other side, we see what the Lady Targaryen's going to do and what her goal in all of this is. And you just, and underneath it all, and you sense from the two trailers, is this tragedy that these are two friends, childhood friends, who are now, as they've aged because of the pressures of politics, the pressures and demands of power, have been ripped apart. And just when they were going to be coming together in season 1, it gets completely shattered into a million pieces. And now we have this battle, and no one's going to really win by the end because so many lives are going to be lost to this battle. And so I'm just jazzed at the trailers, excited to see what we're going to get, and very much feels like we are back on board after the great season 1 to enjoy a season 2, which is only like 3 months away. So I'm very excited from these two trailers.
Listening to Johnny talk, I'm starting to get PTSD from our spoiler reviews of the fact that, like, what I liked about the show is that, like, both of these women think they're right and have a proper claim. And Johnny, not on Team Hightower. I'm remembering now. It's all coming back to me. It's all slowly...
Well, if her dad hadn't sort of drunk at Comic-Con, I'd have been okay. But no. Her dad. If you know, you know. Anyway,
never let it be said that Johnny Rocha does not hold a grudge.
Yeah,
so House Hightower, House Targaryen, which one are you going to be on the side of? You know what? You got a couple of months, about 3 months, I think Johnny said, because first episode comes out Sunday, June 16th. Sunday is going to be HBO. You know, it's not television, it's HBO night again. And that brings us to our second trailer, which I'm going to be really interested to get your all's point of view on this. We got the teaser for Alien Romulus. This is it Fede? Am I saying that right, Johnny?
Yeah.
Fede Alvarez. This is the guy that directed Don't Breathe. So this is a standalone, reportedly a standalone Alien story that actually takes place in between Ridley Scott's Alien and James Cameron's Aliens. And this trailer, or rather this teaser, this is exactly what a teaser needs to be. It's just over 60 seconds. You get shots, you get those claustrophobic alien shots. You get a little bit of gore, and at the end, you see the face huggers running wild. So as one who's not a huge fan of the Alien franchise, I mean, I do like Aliens. I've never felt burned by some of the efforts that have come after that have maybe not reached the expectations of the fan base. So this trailer looks really interesting to me. And allegedly, Fede Alvarez actually gave an interview talking about that. Allegedly, Ridley Scott and James Cameron have both seen it and reportedly loved it. Their notes and comments are completely different. They wouldn't repeat a note. Whatever Ridley said, Cameron said something different. They were all super smart comments, notes, and thoughts on the film and the filmmaking, but both of them have completely different approaches. So this sounds very, very interesting. But Mikey, I'll go over to you first. What did you think of the teaser for Alien Romulus?
I think you are right that it's a great teaser. I think you're 100% right, and I think it absolutely gets that claustrophobic feel from Ridley Scott's Alien, like on the Nostromo. Like, you're trapped on a ship, there's these creatures, we see a lot of facehugger action, like, it gets all the stuff right. It's just because it's a teaser, we can't tell what else it got right or wrong. And I think, unlike you, like, I love Aliens. I love Ridley Scott's Alien. I think Aliens is one of the greatest sequels of all time, also one of the greatest movies of all time. And even though I hated it in theaters, Fincher's Alien 3 has a lot to be said for it as a really beautiful movie. Alien 4, and then Prometheus and Alien Covenant, big, like real bad. And so after being burned several times with the Alien franchise, this does look like a back to basics approach that makes me very excited. But I was texting with some friends of ours, and I was like, look, the difference between this teaser and the teaser for like Prey, as the most recent example of reviving the Predator franchise, Prey right off the bat gave us something brand new that we had never seen before. So it was a very interesting, even at the teaser level, it was like, oh, okay, maybe this is going to be good or bad, but I've never seen a Predator in this environment. This is interesting. This is taking the other approach, which is, we're going to give you exactly what you think Alien should be. Is it going to feel like a retread? Is it going to have something new and fresh they haven't shown us yet? I don't know. So based on the trailer, cautiously interested, but been burned a lot of times. And I do love those big, scary aliens. And I want Alien to get back to where I feel like Predator is now post-Prey.
Now, Johnny, Vogel brings up the fact that Prey was able to sort of inject some life into the Predator franchise. Do you think Alien Romulus, do you think based off the teaser at least, do you think that that's where the Alien franchise is headed?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I did a trailer reaction, which is up on the channel now, and I was excited because I'm a massive Alien franchise fan. This is one that I think, aside from Predator and all these other, Terminator, like, this is one that I think you can still come back to and squeeze some juice out of. I never felt that way about Predator, and then Prey came along. I was like, this is smart, putting it in a different place, time period, making it a Native American story. That was such an ingenious way to approach it. And here we got a little bit of A Force Awakens in that there are some similar beats here, right? This is a lone ship with one alien on the ship, it seems like, and there's some really bloody things that are going to happen here. So there's a lot of feelings like you're back on the Nostromo again in 1979. But they were a commercial freight ship. These are, quote unquote, from the synopsis, colonizers. So what is their approach and point of view? What are they prepared for initially, and how does that go? How does that connect with the alien and what he or she does? We don't know if it has sex at all, but I love the trailer because all you hear initially is these lone wild voices screaming or crying or yelling or saying something, and then you see these bloody walls. And then you cut to all this other stuff going on. The face huggers jumping through the alleyway there, the face hugger on the face. What we think is maybe an android standing there watching it all happen. And so all these beats are very similar, like A Force Awakens was very similar to A New Hope, but in a different way, in a new direction, an interesting approach. And I trust Fede Alvarez, so I'm very excited coming out of this one to see what we're going to get in an insular story. And this is the way to go. Go back to the beginning and then see where you go from here. So I really like that.
And what's going to be, I mean, I know they're saying it's an insular story, so I don't think it's this. But when you are saying that this movie takes place specifically between Alien and Aliens, and to John's point, Alien, the Nostromo was just a commercial freighter. Aliens, they go back to LV-426, and the colonizers who went there have all been taken over by the aliens. Now, if you watch the uncut version of Aliens, the director's cut of Aliens, you actually see where the face hugger comes in, and there's a whole moment that's got cut from the movie where we see the colony on LV-426 before Ripley and the soldiers go there. This movie could be a just totally standalone movie that's like, this is how this happened. This is what went down. It also might not be because there's a lot of other stuff with that colony landed. The company knew the ship was there. It was a whole big thing. Carter Burke was an asshole. Paul Reiser's best performance. But besides all that, it'll be interesting to see how it links up, if it links up, and if it doesn't link up, what elements it takes. And I think that when we do watch it, whether we like it or not, to Shannon's point, it's going to be fun to sit and discuss what we think Ridley Scott said and what we think James Cameron said.
Yeah.
Well, Alien Romulus comes out August 16th at the tail end of the summer. But starting the summer, we have the second trailer for The Fall Guy. So this is starring Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, Winston Duke, directed by David. Is it Leitch or Leitch, Johnny?
I think it's Leitch. I've always heard
Leitch.
it's Leitch. Yeah.
Directed by David Leitch. So, coming out of South by Southwest where they did screen this film, glowing praise that this was just this is the type of film that you want to kick off the summer with. In the days that we used to be able to start the summer with a big fun Marvel movie, maybe Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt are the ones to kind of pick up that torch and go forward, because watching them at the Oscars together presenting, these two just have such great comedic chemistry. And what was a really good first trailer, the second trailer even better. I mean, you're leaning into this incredible comic timing that Ryan Gosling has. I mean, this just doubled down on everything that the first trailer kind of promised us on. So, Johnny, what did you think of our first look at The Fall Guy?
Look, when these two were in Underoos, I was watching Lee Majors in The Fall Guy, and I love that series. And so I'm excited that we're back with this reimagining, shall we say, for lack of a better term, of The Fall Guy. Because honestly, this feels like an episode of the series, right? Someone and your actor that you've been doubling for goes missing. You've got to solve the case. That's essentially a premise for any episode of the series. You're like, okay, great. What else are we doing here? That first trailer was very focused on the action and very focused on the relationship between Gosling and Emily Blunt. This trailer feels like, hey, everyone saw I'm Just Ken. We're going to focus on Ryan Gosling and see what we can do. So there was a lot here to really enjoy. Good to see Winston Duke having a little bit of moments with him as well. But seeing all the different comedic moments that happen combined with the action, having Emily Blunt coming in every once in a while throughout the trailer to drop some funny lines as well, and see like when they're sitting in the car, you want to make out? No, I wasn't thinking that, blah, blah, blah. But then her, of course, seeing the, how can I say this, shirtless Ryan Gosling there and mooning over that. So there's a lot here that I think is going to get people very excited and happy to see. This is a perfect summer movie, and seeing all the reviews coming out of South by Southwest, which were almost universally praising the film, makes me even more excited that we're going to get at least one good movie this year that feels like a popcorn summer movie that we can enjoy. So coming out of this trailer, extremely excited and looking forward to it. And maybe David Leitch has solved some of his Leitchisms, and this is a much more tighter, streamlined film that doesn't have these weird little tangents in the middle of it. So I'm hoping that's what we get here, because the reviews have been so excellent.
Yeah, we've also got Hannah Waddingham from Ted Lasso in the cast. Aaron Taylor Johnson, a David Leitch regular who may or may not be our next James Bond. Mikey, what did you think? Are you ready to fall for The Fall Guy?
Well, couple things. First of all, I was not like John. I've never watched an episode of The Fall Guy in my life. So going in, having never watched an episode of The Fall Guy, I am equally as excited. Secondly, I'm pretty sure those were Aaron Taylor Johnson's titties that she was looking at. Just to be clear. I think as someone who has spent a lot of time staring at a lot of men's chests, I'm pretty sure that was Aaron Taylor Johnson, not Ryan Gosling's. But we will see. And you know what? They're both great chests to look at.
Fair.
It's great. Everything that you guys are saying, plus, like, I'm thrilled that all of the early buzz that it's amazing. I think those two are stupidly charismatic individually, and putting them together is like, it's like the Oppenheimer of charisma. Like, it's just a bomb that you just can't deny. Like, it's just insane. Right. And the movie looks great. You know, there was a time where a summer popcorn movie didn't mean Michael Bay special effects and zero plot. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that we've now gotten to this point where, like, Godzilla versus Kong, guys, I'm going to see it. I'm excited that Kong, or Godzilla with Kong, whatever it is, the new empire. I'm excited that Kong has a power glove. That movie looks so stupid. So, kind of to John's point, it's fun to be excited about a movie that looks like it is going for full popcorn, but is still a smart, fun, clever movie. And it feels like this is what that is.
All right. Well, The Fall Guy comes out May 3rd. It'll be kicking off the summer. Summer 2024. Here we come.
All right. Thanks, Shannon, for those trailers. Let's take a quick break. We'll jump into Michael's section of the show here right after this.
Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.
All right, Mr. Vogel,
This might be my section, but I will tell you that Shannon is probably more excited about this than any of us. At the Game Designs Conference this week, Marvel and Skydance New Media released their long-anticipated trailer for Marvel 1943: Rise of Hydra, coming from former Uncharted writer-director Amy Hennig. So this is a massive game done on the Unreal Engine. It is set in World War II. It stars Captain America, T'Challa, the Black Panther's grandfather, and it looks absolutely stunning. The gameplay looks amazing. The cinematics look amazing. During the course of this single-player game, you can actually play 4 separate heroes. You will be a young Steve Rogers, Captain America, before he was frozen in ice, obviously. Azuri, the grandfather of T'Challa and the Black Panther during World War II. Gabriel Jones, a member of the Howling Commandos, the SHIELD super soldier, SHIELD super soldiers tasked with taking on Hydra. And Nanali, a Wakandan spy operating out of Nazi-occupied Paris. So, look, Shannon loves a period piece. Shannon loves Captain America. When you watch this trailer, aside from the fact that it looks like an absolutely stunning game with a level of gameplay, graphics, performance capture that I have never seen before in my life, it looks like a completely insanely badass game. And if you've ever played an Uncharted game, as some of the best single-player games out there, you kind of know what you're up for. And I know Shannon's a big fan of those games. So obviously, Shannon, let me go to you first. How are you feeling about this game?
So I had heard about the Cap Black Panther game for a while. I again, because my sensibilities with video games now are so kind of limited because they kind of make me sick because I get motion sickness. I don't pay that much attention until footage actually comes out. Looking at this trailer, and granted, this was the story trailer. There wasn't like a ton of gameplay. This is everything I wanted the trailer for that Indiana Jones game to be. Because it is from Uncharted, my guess is this is going to be a third person, so we're going to get to see us playing Cap. We're going to get to see playing Black Panther. Also, Gabe Jones, that is Derek Luke's character from Captain America, the First Avenger. Just World War II and before. You put characters in those time periods, whether it's the late 1800s or it's World War I or World War II. I am just for whatever reason, just aesthetically, I just love the world. I love those worlds, and getting to play again one of my favorite characters in a game that just looks so well done. I mean, the fact that they do have some of the creative team from Uncharted on it just got me so excited. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know what this was going to be. So as I start the trailer, this is the type of thing, obviously the MCU would never do this, but I'm kind of like, okay, during Captain America, the First Avenger, we get a giant montage of Steve and the Howling Commandos taking out these Hydra bases. I'm like, this is one of those missions that we saw a glimpse of that now that we're having a whole game dedicated to potentially. To me, it's just so exciting. So in knowing that where the story trailer goes, that's probably the first maybe quarter of the game. That would be my guess, because the trailer presents Black Panther and Cap kind of as antagonists, but those two are going to get on the same side and they're going to take out Hydra. I just had a giant smile on my face from beginning to end. And 2025, we don't know exactly in 2025 when it's coming out, I don't think. But I guess I'm going to have to take some Dramamine so I can play this game. Are you going to
try and play it? Are you going to try and play it?
Yeah, this one, and what was it? Star Wars? Is it Scoundrels or Rogues?
Yes, Outlaws. Outlaws. Right? Yeah.
Those are the two that, based off of their trailers, I'm like, all right, I guess I might have to go get sick for a little bit to play this game.
I want to do the TikTok of how long it takes Shannon to get sick watching it get played, just film him while he plays. Johnny, what do you think? What do you think of this trailer?
This is just right on the edge of me hanging on to things like this, by my fingertips, man, because I was reading about this, the Unreal Engine that they use, the 5.4. I'm just like, what is happening here? Because it really feels almost like AI. It gets so close that you're just like, okay, where where are we on this? And this is a fascinating way to jump into this. And also, I like the idea that Marvel's understanding, listen, to expand our brand in all these different areas, we might have to jump around in time periods so people will get like the novelty of that, like we saw in the most recent season of What If, right? Jumping into different time periods is interesting. It's exciting. It challenges you as the viewer. Also, it's a little bit of a history lesson. Okay, let's take a look. And World War II is always one of these places that crosses over, no matter what your feelings are, if you're woke or anti-woke or whatever that nonsense. Like World War II is that one place people can go to and feel like a sense of connection to our history and our country and all of that. So setting these heroes from two different sides of the world here on this mission, I think is interesting. Introducing new characters here. And I love Carrie Payton. So having Carrie Payton do a member of the Black Panther lineage, that was fucking awesome to hear his voice yet again doing something like this. And then the conversation, I think he makes some kind of comment of him in red, white, and blue underwear. So we're going to get the back and forth here that is so good about Marvel. And Amy Hennig, like I said, she has done so much here with Uncharted and had that Star Wars game that she was working on. I think with Todd Stashwick, unfortunately gets scrapped. And I remember hearing about that when I was very much looking forward to it. So maybe, once this comes out, maybe there's some rethinking on that down the road and seeing how great she really is as a creator of these games. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to play. I bought a new PS5, the slimmer version here a few weeks ago. I traded in my old one because I want to start playing games again. So this is one that I'm definitely I'm going to wait 2 years for it, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the Unreal Engine is really crazy. And there's actually, in addition to the trailer, which we obviously just talked about, if you go on YouTube and Google it, there's actually a 12-minute discussion from GDC this week where they go really deep into what the Unreal Engine can do and sort of how it renders all these things in real time. Absolutely worth the watch if you want to nerd out on what's happening, because John is right. Like, these are the types of things. I mean, Uncharted was like this. I think the Spider-Man games are like this. Like, the storytelling in video games is very unique and very different because you have to get from one story thing through, okay, well, what am I playing? And here's all the action. But the stories are getting really compelling and really interesting. I mean, obviously, The Last of Us being a standout that really moved people so much that now it's a series. So the line between what you can do with visual effects in movies and what you can do with things like the Unreal Engine in video games and the type of storytelling you can tell is getting very, very blurred, which I think is going to be really interesting moving forward. So we will all be playing this game for some level. We'll see how long Shannon hangs in there sometime in 2025.
Yeah, and I think I want to say something real quick, Michael. She was talking to hit me real quick, and I know we're going to go to break, but like, it feels to me like these old divisions that we used to have in entertainment are blurring. The lines are blurring more and more and more as we go into an advance here as a society, right? Because used to be, okay, that's film and television, that's geekdom, that's comic books, that's video games, that's pro wrestling. Like, all these things that are entertainment based and have stories to them or some form of soap opera to them are now blurring because we're seeing stories that are so interesting and dense and fascinating within the video games. We're seeing better video game adaptations into live theatrical films. And then we're seeing pro wrestlers who are transitioning quickly into live action films here. So this idea of divisions anymore in entertainment, I think, is completely destroying or falling apart rather. And it's all melding together, which I think is a good thing because it's elevating everything else around it to kind of match that kind of quality. So this is a good example of that. And I hope more of this keeps happening as we go along and people stop being so divisive or so linear in their thinking.
Well, I mean, I think, we're about to talk about the 2 episodes of X-Men animated, and I do think that, I mean, based on Twitter's reaction, and I think a lot of what we are about to say about it, there's also that line between live action and animation, and I'm like, oh, that's good for a cartoon. And I think most people are like, oh, no, X-Men 97 is one of the best Marvel things, period, on TV right now. So it's going to be interesting to see where all of these, I agree with you 100%. Like, I think the lines are being blurred across the board, and I think that's better for everybody.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, let's take a quick break here, and we'll jump into an oldie but goodie segment here on the Geek Buddies right after this.
Do 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 do.
Oh God.
Do 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 do.
I've ever heard in my life. That's awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the old segment here, an oldie but a goodie, and it is time for rapid fire. For those of you maybe new to the show, this is how it works. There's 4 topics here. Each of these gentlemen here will have 1 minute to talk about these topics, and they will be timed. And once they cross the minute, it is shut down, and we go to the other person for a minute here. So let's kick it off here with this. Entertainment Weekly dropped 2 new photos for Beetlejuice 2 here to showcase what is coming from this film later on this year. We got Michael Keaton back in the old school look right after his fantastic Batman moment there at the Oscars. And we have Catherine O'Hara here, Jenna Ortega, Winona Ryder, and Justin Theroux, who I think looks like he's playing the new Otto character in all of this. So, gentlemen, I go to Mike. I go to you for 1 minute. Your thoughts on the stills, go.
Look, I mean, it's hard to tell how a movie is going to be from a still, and we are definitely living in the era of nostalgia where we are pulling everything out from the 80s and like trotting it back out and trying to do the best we can. I would say sometimes when we take a cast from the 80s and find them in 2024 and put them all back on the screen, it doesn't work out great. Maybe some of them have let themselves go a little bit. Maybe some of them haven't performed in a while. Maybe some of them weren't that good to begin with. Oh. But when you take Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder, and Michael Keaton and put them back in these roles, these people still got the chops. I mean, Catherine O'Hara coming off of Schitt's Creek is still, if not, she might be more popular now than she was at Beetlejuice's time.
Wow.
And Michael Keaton has more than proven that he still has his chops across the board with every role that he's been playing recently. So will this movie be good? I don't know. Am I really excited to see the 2 of them particularly? Absolutely. And Jenna Ortega as the daughter of Lydia Dietz is, although very obvious casting, you can't get mad at it because it's the most perfect casting that there is. So given what she did on Wednesday, the vibes across the board on this feel great. We will see. I want to see a trailer.
Boom. All right. Shannon, 1 minute. Go.
Yeah, so when Beetlejuice came out in 1988, I mean, this is before, I believe this is before Home Alone. So Catherine O'Hara, she hadn't really... She wasn't that well known to American audiences. Now, because of Schitt's Creek, throwing her back up on screen with Michael Keaton, with Winona Ryder, I mean, this just seems, this based off of 2 stills, this just seems like it is hopefully going to be a lot of fun. And also with Michael Keaton and Tim Burton, a Beetlejuice sequel has been kicking around for decades. And the fact that this is the one that this story is the one that got them signed up, got them to do, throw on the pinstripe suit again. I'm really, really optimistic. Justin Theroux as the spiritual successor to Otho seems like great casting. And also there's 2 other cast members we haven't seen. Monica Bellucci as Beetlejuice's wife.
Yeah.
And Willem Dafoe also in some kind of role. So, Tim Burton's track record has been a little spotty in the last few years, but hopefully this is the one that gets him back on track, and hopefully we just get a great Beetlejuice story.
Good job. I'm proud of you. That was good. All right, let's get it going. Let's see here. Let's move on to our next one, and that is The Office. Now, this is happening. Ladies and gentlemen, strap it in. If you haven't heard about this, The Office is happening. There is a reboot that is being done by Greg Daniels. He has tapped Nathan For You co-boss there to help him create the potential show here. We're going back to the world of Dunder Mifflin. Michael Coleman is who I was mentioning there from Nathan For You. He will be joining them and being part of the series. It's not been greenlit yet. The series is still in development at Universal Television, and it is supposedly not a reboot of The Office, but set in the same universe, meaning it likely would be set in different offices settings with all new characters. He opened a development room back in January of 2024. So, Shannon, do we need a new Office right now? What's your thoughts? Go.
So, with anything that is successful and that when it ends successfully, even though you can argue that the last 2 seasons of The Office weren't their strongest with the exit of Steve Carell, there's always a, when are they going to reboot it? When are they going to reboot it? When are they going to reboot it? I personally don't feel like enough time has gone by. But at the same time, when The Office originally with Ricky Gervais came out on the BBC, when the news that they were going to do an American version, the audience was like, do we need an American version of this? And based off the first season, we didn't. But because they stayed with it and the characters got to develop on their own and they became their own people, the show became its own thing, it ended up being one of the best sitcoms in recent memory. First glance, I'm like, no, we don't need it. But who knows? I mean, if we'd not stayed with The Office, the American version of The Office, we would have gotten some of the greatest moments in television history. So cautiously optimistic. We'll see.
Okay. All right. There we go. Mikey, your turn. Go. 1 minute.
It's interesting because The Office, when it came out, was great, but I feel like The Office spawned a bajillion shows that are like The Office. Like let's kind of show these ridiculous characters. Let's cut away to the camera crew that's there. So, I mean, The Office gave us Parks and Rec, obviously, but it kind of gave us Modern Family. It's giving us Abbott Elementary. Like, we have all of these shows that follow that formula, but with very, very different cast of characters. So, do we need to return to the world of Dunder Mifflin? No, we don't need to, because we have so many shows that are the spiritual successors to the world of Dunder Mifflin. If they create a great cast of characters and a new way of looking at this, you know what I mean? Like, Abbott Elementary to me is the ultimate example of taking like the Office model and saying, well, let's not do a shitty office, let's do elementary schools and talk about the problems there. If this is just another show about a bunch of people who are working at a paper company, what makes it different? What makes it unique? What makes it stand out? If they can answer those questions and we go, oh, okay, then we're good. There, that's what I got.
That's your 1 minute. All right, let's go. Here's our next one here. And Michael, we're going to start with you. But first, let me get the setup here. Neverending Story. The Neverending Story is on its way back here. The beloved fantasy novel from the late German author Michael Ende that was famously adapted into the cult 1984 film is being revived for the big screen once more with a new joint venture partnership between Michael Ende Productions and prestige tastemakers Seesaw Films. Seesaw Films was behind Lion, Power of the Dog, and recent TV hits Heartstopper and Slow Horses. And there is no conversation yet on who is involved in the production team, and there's no conversation yet on how many films they're going to be. So, Mike, we're going back to the world of Neverending Story, and it seems like it's going to be a series if the first one is a hit. Does this excite you? Is this Game of Thrones? Is this Lord of the Rings? Is this like these series that we've been seeing lately? Is this something that could open our eyes to a whole new universe here? Go.
Yes, maybe. Who knows? I love Neverending Story. My dad took me to see that movie when I was a kid. It scared me. It thrilled me. It's still one of my favorite movies. I still want to fly in a luck dragon. I'm probably one of the few people that then went and read the entire book, Neverending Story, which is a very big book, some of which was covered in the first movie, some of which was covered in Neverending Story 2, which is a garbage movie, and the less said about that movie, the better. It's a very rich world. We are trotting everything out from the 80s and putting it back out there. It could be cool. It could be absolutely horrible. Putting it into the hands of people who have done things like Heartstopper and like Slow Horses, both of which are very, very successful, creatively fulfilling, popular with audiences, gives me hope. It feels like you have a strong creative team behind it. It's a very rich world. It has ultimate possibilities, but we've seen some of these things go on to amazing heights and become super, super pop culture phenomenons. And we've seen other things crash and burn. And Neverending Story is just weird enough that it could go either way.
All right, Shannon, go. 1 minute.
It is going to completely depend on their ability to connect with young people. Because Neverending Story, that is a staple of the 1980s, and like the 1980s, it wasn't that successful. I mean, it was more discovered on VHS, on HBO.
Yep.
So it's going to completely depend on that, because I don't think you're going to be able to rely on the audience that was a kid in the 80s. Like, we've seen a lot of these properties, these legacy sequels get revived. Some of them are great. Some of them are like, woo, the old audience wasn't enough to do it. Yeah. So as Vogel said, I mean, if this is done right, maybe this is Rings of Power. If it's done wrong, it could be Willow. So, it is just going to depend on their ability to connect with that younger audience.
Wow, bringing that Willow hate here. Okay, I respect it. All right, let me stop here. Reset. All right, well, first real quick, Office, I don't think we need it. God, please, no, not again. And so I like the Neverending Story as a possibility. So we'll see. And this is going to be massive, international, going different places. Say they want to shoot in Germany, and they want to bring out some of the places and locations that were not used in the Neverending Story film. So I think that's an exciting piece of news for sure. All right, let's move on to this other story here. All right, Popeye is apparently getting a live action development here from Chernin and King Features. Now, lest you forget, for those of us who are old enough, there already was a live action Popeye that came out, but this one is going to be a new version that is coming out here of Popeye the Sailor Man. Shannon, do we need this? This is in development. It's a big budget feature and has attached screenwriter Michael Calio, who did Sexy Beast. The Family, wrote on The Sopranos. So are we having Popeye killing people? Like, what is this all about? Are you excited about this? Is this past its time? It just celebrated its 95th anniversary this year. So do you think this is a little bit long in the tooth, or is Popeye still a worthy property to try to make another live action version of?
Do I think the spinach has been wilted? Maybe. Look, way back when I was living in Florida and working for Universal, I actually played live action Popeye. I got that. Maybe I'll put the photo. Maybe I'll put the photo up on our Geek's Instagram. But there's a section at the Universal Islands of Adventure, their second park, that is called Toon Lagoon, and it's dedicated to all of the older comic strips. It is one of the less, and from my opinion, one of the less popular islands, because a lot of these old comic strip characters, people just don't know who they are anymore. Now, granted, Popeye is very, very popular. But do kids know who Popeye is? I'm not sure. Kind of like when they made the Dudley Do-Right movie. It's like, who was this for? Like, were we clamoring for this? I mean, granted, this was 20 years ago. But it's all going to depend on who you can find to fill those sailor shoes, because Robin Williams was an incredible Popeye in a movie that a lot of people didn't connect to initially, and some people found some love for later. I'm just curious who the audience is for this.
I agree. And speaking of who the audience is for this, take a look at this thing. This is apparently there are a number of trailers that have been coming out over the last couple of years that have gotten hundreds of thousands to millions of views for Popeye here, Michael. So is there a possibility here that there is a really big market for this? Because apparently this is still happening nowadays. Moschino Supreme and A Bathing Ape did a menswear collection 2 years ago, which was influenced by Popeye, and Popeye is still the face of McCall Farm spinach. So, Michael, do we need a Popeye live action Popeye?
Okay, when I worked at Hasbro, where we ran development at Hasbro, and our job was to develop things about Hasbro brands. And so when you're working for Hasbro, you've got everything. You've got Transformers and you've got My Little Pony, but you've also got Hungry Hungry Hippos and Stretch Armstrong and Play School. And so part of the job was, well, if you were going to do this, what would you do? And so I personally believe any piece of IP, there's potential there. You just have to find the right way in. And so I think in a world where nostalgia doesn't get you success, but it might get people interested. And so the question about Popeye is, what makes him relevant? What makes him interesting? He's a guy that looks kind of strong, and then he eats spinach, and he gets stronger, and he has a really skinny girlfriend, and he beats up the big bully. Like, there's not a lot there, which kind of works against you. But if you can find the way of, this is what the story is, this is how we're attacking modern audiences in a fresh new way, who does?
Okay, there you go. There you go. All right, one last one, and this is a bit of a sad one here. It just announced yesterday that great character actor Emmet Walsh had passed away. I'm gonna tell you this. He is one of the greatest character actors ever. You can see there from the stills. Some of the stills are from Blade Runner, from Raising Arizona, from Blood Simple. So an incredible character actor, Emmet Walsh. Shannon, any quick thoughts on Emmet Walsh, you as an actor yourself?
I mean, he's a guy that he was one of those performers that was that guy from That Thing. Like he popped up in so many big films over the years. I mean, in the 80s, like he was all over the place. And most recently, he was in the first Knives Out. I mean, getting to see him, getting to see him with Daniel Craig. I mean, so it obviously very, 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 very sad when we lose a tried and true performer. But he had an incredible career.
Yeah, 88 years old, and Roger Ebert created the Stanton-Walsh rule, which held that no movie featuring Harry Dean Stanton or Emmet Walsh in a supporting role can be altogether bad. So that's an incredible rule to create for two specific actors. Michael, your thoughts on Emmet Walsh? Any thoughts on this?
Well, I'm glad he has that rule, because it means that one of my favorite movies from the 80s, Critters, can't be all bad. So great. I'm glad that we have that role. No, Shannon's right. He's that guy from that movie. And he was in so many movies that, you know, he wasn't Ryan Gosling. But I mean, the man worked. The man worked. And, you know, and we talk about this a lot. Like when we see these, when we see actors, performers, people in the creative industry pass away, you get to a certain age where you start to really look at the number. And if it's like below a certain number, you're like, that's really a shame. And if it's above a certain number, you're like, this is sad, but you had a life. And the fact that, I mean, was it 88, I believe? 88. Was it 88 when he passed away? Yep. You know, 88 years old. And the last, if it is his last movie, was Knives Out. That's a hell of a run. I mean, even like, there's probably maybe something before, something after. But like, if you're like, hey, what was your career? Oh, you know, the original Blade Runner to Knives Out. That is not bad.
That's not bad. No, for sure. In 150 films, also did numerous TV shows here like Sneaky Pete, The Mind of the Married Man, Frasier, X-Files, NYPD Blue, The Bob Newhart Show. Also was in animation, lending his voice to the Iron Giant and Pound Puppies, and did voiceover work on Ken Burns' documentaries, The Civil War and Baseball. So a guy who spanned a number of films, and of course, My Best Friend's Wedding, played Dermot Mulroney's dad. So a number of films he was involved in, both voiceover-wise or on camera. So an incredible legacy to leave, and a great name as well. It's a perfect character as actor's name, Emmet Walsh. If they ever give an Oscar for character acting, they should call it the Emmet Walsh Trophy. There is no one else I would think of for that. All right, well, there you go. That's the end of Rocha's Rapid. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get into X-Men 97 right after this.
Like the dramatic version. The ominous version.
I am not the person to lead these reviews, but I will do my best, and I'm just going to toss stuff out. That's all I'm going to do, because I am the person who has seen X-Men, the original animated series, less than either of these two gentlemen. But we're going to talk about both of these episodes. X-Men 97, the episode 1, To Me, My X-Men, and episode 2, Mutant Liberation Begins. Michael, I go to you. This one, interesting story. These two, great to release them together because they're very much connected with Magneto. We're picking up right after the end of the X-Men animated series. Xavier has been killed or assassinated, if you want to say that. And then Magneto takes over by the end of episode 1, and we see him trying to, in essence, lead the X-Men, and the friction that it causes, and understanding that he's got to show that he belongs in some way by the end. A lot of conversation. There's a lot of love triangles, babies, crazy stuff happening in all this stuff going on here that you would expect from an X-Men story, and also some real life topical conversations and messages being pushed out in both of these episodes. So your thoughts on the return of the X-Men animated series here in X-Men 97 over these first two episodes?
Well, I tweeted this yesterday, but I think it still stands as the way to dive into this, at least from my perspective, which is every once in a while, a TV show comes along and just gets everything right. Yeah. And X-Men 97 came along this week and got everything right. Like, it is a perfect show. And I don't even mean that it, like, yes, picking up after the events of the original X-Men 90s animated series, which is pretty beloved. And they picked the story right up and kept going, but they nailed X-Men. So, you know, some people on Twitter were asking, they're like, oh, well, do I have to have watched all of the old X-Men? I don't think you do. You're going to be a little confused. They're going to mention, oh, this guy did this or this, but they give you the big stuff, and John kind of covered it. At the end of X-Men, Professor X died. Maybe, like, everyone correct me in the comments, but I don't think he's actually dead. But like, that's some space shit and whatever. For as far as the X-Men go, no, Professor X is gone. Charles Xavier has died. They're kind of picking up the pieces after that. There's a couple villains that show up in the first episode that are tied to the original series, but I think they give you the context you need. And then Magneto takes over the team. And I think for the most part, we're diving right into some brand new stories coming up. But the main thing was they got the characters right. They got Scott Summers right in a way that Scott Summers has never been right in the live action movies or anything else. They nailed Magneto. And the thing that they did that is the best is that the X-Men's abilities, the way they use their powers, in the 2 episodes that have come out so far, we saw characters doing things with their powers that we have never seen in any of the entertainment. And you can just tell that the entire creative team behind this show despite whatever else they did that got them fired last week, really knows the X-Men and knows the characters, and I think we're in for a really wild ride.
Yeah, Shannon, what are your overall thoughts on this? I mean, the animation here was beautiful. The style was very interesting, slightly anime in certain moments. The voiceover work was incredible, I thought, from everybody involved here. And it's batshit crazy in the best ways that X-Men stories can be. What did you think overall of these first 2 episodes?
I mean, I probably have only seen a handful more episodes than you. Like when this came out in the 90s, like I was in high school and I wasn't watching a ton of TV across the board, whether it be live action or animated. So going in, I was like I knew the basics. Like I know all the characters, but I knew the basics. I knew that Professor X might be dead, and that's kind of it. But the first episode especially, like I was really kind of paying attention to the action. Like it is very much in the style. It's a little cleaner than the episodes from the 90s because of, technology.
A lot cleaner.
But just watching the team dynamic is a lot of fun. Now I'll be curious to see again how younger people react to this, because the voice acting the voice acting styles have kind of evolved. I mean, like, the 90s, it's very big, it's very broad, it's very pronounced. And that's not quite what is done now as much. And so at the beginning it was a little jarring, but I quickly settled in, and watching Cyclops use his optic blast to propel him to, as they're falling from the sky, and he's able to use that to kind of cushion his landing. Cyclops is really the one that kind of stood out. And again, I think as Vogel put it, like they've never quite gotten him right in the film. Cyclops is a stick in the mud, I mean, he is a straight arrow, and leaning into that, like trying to shoulder this burden of taking control of this team after their leader has been dispatched. It was really good, and like I thought the first episode, I'm like, this is pretty good. The second episode I thought was great. I mean, just some of the dialogue that they gave Magneto, I'm like, all I could hear was Ian McKellen in my head saying some of those lines. I'm like, this is really well written dialogue, and very topical as well. I mean, watching Magneto's hearing and him basically saying, even when you play by the rules, they're not. It just so well written, and the intercutting that they did in the second episode with the big action sequence, along with what was going on with Jean, was like, man, that is really good. That's really good filmmaking. That's really good storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself agreeing with Magneto more than maybe I'd like to agree with Magneto in that second episode. Michael and I have always had this running joke that he is Charles and I'm Magneto, and certainly I found that very clear in that second episode, because I thought Magneto was right in a lot of ways. Now, did it legitimize what he did? We don't. Obviously, if you've seen the animated series, you know the stuff that he did, so you have that weight to it. But just knowing from the comics what Magneto has done, I just brought that to my mind when I was watching that second episode, in this conflict of, well, if someone says they've changed and they're willing to show their change, can we afford grace in our society to accept someone's changes? What needs to happen for us to accept this change? So I thought that was a nice challenge. And also, Mike, there were some messages here, obviously, that echoed into what's going on in our world today. This idea of acceptance, this idea of, judging other people, feeling other people are progressing past you, and what you feel like being left behind. Well, screw you guys. We're not going to be left behind. We're going to try to make you one of us. We're going to try to convert you, take away what makes you unique, and make you one of us. And so there's a lot here that you can absolutely pick up on in terms of the messaging. And of course, no matter what your point of view is, right, you can pick up on the political messaging that's going on here, or the social messaging that's going on here, that I thought was really good. What are the things that stood out for you storyline wise or character wise, as Shannon was pointing out with Cyclops? What stood out to you as you were watching these first 2 episodes?
Let's see, what stood out the most? I mean, like, just to jump onto the Scott Summers bandwagon with Shannon, I mean, it really is tough because most people think of Cyclops as Shannon said, a stick in the mud, that he's boring, he's the leader of the team, he's very responsible. So there's been times that they've tried to make Cyclops cooler, which is always a disaster. There's trying to, let's do the, and I think what they did here, which was so great, is that they let Cyclops be a stick in the mud. They let Cyclops be the guy that is like, this is what we need to do. They let everyone else be pissed at him. But then when everyone is falling out of the sky and Cyclops waits to make sure all the other flyers on the team catch the non-flyers and says, great job, everybody, and then optic blasts himself into a soft landing, it's the coolest fucking thing you've ever seen. And you're like, oh, this guy is... Yes, he's a stick in the mud. Yes, he's a Boy Scout. Yes, he's all this, but he's fucking badass. Like, he should be the leader of this team. And it was so great to just go on Twitter yesterday and just see all the justice for Cyclops tweets that were like, all right, nope, he's cool. X-Men is, in addition to having been woke from day one, which this series absolutely carries on that tradition, X-Men has always been, as you said, it's a soap opera. So like right off the bat, like, I mean, we bring in Sunspot. He's going to be an interesting character. A little bit of stuff going on between him and Jubilee. That's nice. Rogue and Gambit, always got that going on. Rogue can't touch anybody. Sucks to be Rogue. Scott and Jean having a baby. Wolverine is upset because he's really in love with Jean and he can't stand Scott. Like, all of those elements are all there. And then when you bring Magneto back into the mix at the end of the first episode into the second episode, you've got the Magneto and Rogue backstory. You've got Magneto trying really hard to step into Charles's shoes, which is really hard for him. You've got all of these elements. And then by the end of the episode, with Storm losing her powers, which is another thing that's pulled right from the comics, you're going to have this amazing arc for Storm. And then obviously with the end with Jean Grey showing up on the doorsteps, you're like, okay, well, now there's two Jean Greys. What does this mean? And again, if you know the comics, you know where that's going. But so the soap opera of it all was really, really, really great. And I think to your point about Magneto, you know, the whole second episode, which you might as well say they said, hey, we watched the January 6th events that happened. What if we did that and just said it at the UN? Because watching it happen, I mean, when you talk about how it is very topical, and yes, the messages of acceptance and racism and bigotry and diversity, like, that's all there. But to have a group of protesters outside of a government building get very upset and storm the building.
I mean, it's very clear.
It's clear what we're doing. Like, it's clear what's happening here. And to have the X-Men stand there and defend everybody in that building who are having a trial that is like, is this mutant okay or not? It was very relevant. It was very now, but it felt very, very X-Men. And then, I mean, the thing that's great about this series is Magneto took those UN officials and that dude up into the sky in a very Magneto way. And I was like, oh, wow, I thought we were going to have him be a good guy for a while, but I guess that didn't last that long. But then to take them up there and give the speech that he gives, which is basically like, you don't have to like us. You don't have to embrace us. You have to just accept that we exist. And then to be like, I'm trying to be a good guy. Don't make me not be. Like, it was to be like, I'm going to be the good guy here, but just so we're clear, as we are floating above the planet, I'm doing this because I want to, and if I don't want to, you can't stop me, is some Magneto badassery. Like, that is an understanding of who this character is, that aside from like a couple times in the live action movies when they really, really nailed it, like with both Fassbender and Ian McKellen, because I think they both have like their moments that are absolutely fantastic. This is like a Magneto for the ages. Yeah.
Shannon, what else stood out to you as you watch these characters come to the forefront and these storylines overall here?
I mean, again, for me, it's the action. Yeah. Like the things that you can do in animation. If you try to do them in live action, they're real expensive. And that's not to say that they're not expensive in animation, but there's you just have a broader canvas. And I feel like it was the Sentinel sequence at the end of episode 1 that's the animatic we saw at Comic-Con like 3 years ago. So getting to like having a memory of that and getting to hear, the original actors, doing their efforts, which is a VO term for when you like have a huh or a ha. Just watching that sequence kind of come to life was awesome. I mean, like I love ingenuity in action. I mean, Gambit hopping on Wolverine's back and charging his claws before Morph turns into the Blob and sends Wolverine up to the top of a Sentinel. Like that is so much fun, and it's just also like character-based action, like Beast managing to trip a Sentinel, then going inside and reprogramming it. Rogue, because she is super strong, being able to just judo flip one of them. It's just so much fun to watch. And then going into the second episode, again, that sequence of Magneto taking those government officials up into the sky, up into the atmosphere, and you can see their breath, you can see them getting cold. That stuff is just so well done. And also there were some very funny sequences as well. Like you get Logan's reaction when he's like, he's here. Who? Apocalypse. It's the baby. And you see his giant Canadian eyes get this big. And Jean, despite the fact that she is going into labor, she's able to telekinetic his jacket and keys into his hands. Like, I just love character-based moments like that. It's just really, really satisfying for an audience member.
Yeah.
I also think they did something, two things in one moment near the end of episode 2 that I think deserve special call outs. One, the doctor that won't perform the pregnancy because she's a mutant, which if you are a gay person, if you are someone living in a state where you can't have an abortion, like, again, they're using the mutant thing in a very real, very relevant way. But they also did something with the doctor that I thought was smart, which is his reasoning wasn't just like, I hate you, mutie scum. Yeah. He was a bigot, but he was like, also, if you lose control of your powers, the whole hospital blows up, which gets to the actual fears that people have about mutants. So I thought, like, this is where it's not just, hey, I'm racist and bad and you are a mutant, so I hate you, but the reasons and the lists and like, this is why I don't want to do this, or this is why you're dangerous, which, if you've lived as a trans person or a gay person or a person of color or a person of a different faith, when people hate you, they have a list of reasons. Yeah. And so I think that having those reasons come out and having this be a place to dialogue about it was great. I also love that they used Rogue's power in a really smart way. Like, Rogue, because she can't touch anybody, it's always used as this is a shitty mutant power. Like, she can't touch Gambit, she can't touch people she loves, except for Magneto. But the fact that she also can soak up people's information and knowledge, that her kind of being like, Jean being like, hey, soak up his information so you can perform the pregnancy. And then her being like, if I touch you, it's going to be bad. And she's like, I trust you. Like, it was just a great moment. Like, that's Rogue using her power in a badass way. That's Jean trusting Rogue. That's Rogue doing something awesome. Like, every piece of that was just an awesome X-Men moment. And again, a way that Rogue used her powers that we don't always get to see.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was great to, as a person who read a lot of X-Men comic book runs growing up, when they were in their heyday, really in their big heyday in the 80s and 90s, I loved all the characters and all the madness that went on. Did every storyline work? No, but it was nice to kind of explore new mutants and have new ones come in and from different places and then offshoot and create new teams and all of this. The fact that we have such an incredible and interesting mix of members of previous iterations of X-Men teams that I saw in the comics all be part of this one team, I thought was a lot of fun to experience. And what you said earlier, Shannon, is on point. Like, each of them getting their chance to shine and show their powers in unique and interesting ways that make sense within a fight, I thought was great, or within a conversation. And when they're all like reacting to the Magneto situation, they all have separate comments and whatever throughout this, especially in the second episode when he's like, I'm going to be taking control. And he keeps saying, my X-Men, this kind of little slight dig that he's throwing in there, I thought was great. And Michael, what you point out is absolutely right. Like, what's great is that they didn't turn the villains into just villains. There is, you can understand their logic. You may not agree with it, but you can understand that, which makes them a much more fleshed out, three-dimensional type of character that you can go like, okay, I get their point of view. I hate that they're deciding to do this kind of thing, like create a weapon that removes the uniqueness of a person's abilities in order to make them just like them because they fear what these people can do with their powers. I can understand where that fear comes from. And I think the show does an excellent job of that. So it's going to be real interesting because I hear already the calls all over social media, Mike and Shannon, I don't know if you've seen it, but like a lot of people are asking questions about Bo DeMayo because one of the things they really liked about these two episodes is the writing. And the writing was really well done. It was over dramatic when it needed to be. It was grounded when it needed to be. Obviously, the voiceover work from these incredible professionals across the board delivered those moments correctly as they should and believably as they should. But there's a lot of questions being asked. What do you gentlemen think about the end result of this is going to be? Is Marvel going to be pressured into making a statement here sooner rather than later on all of this?
As we said when we discussed this last week, whatever he did, like, there's been a lot of conjecture, and we said this, like, about, oh, well, his OnlyFans page, or he said this, or he tweeted this about The Witcher, or like, but none of that is. There was clearly something that went down.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're ever going to know, maybe because Marvel doesn't want to say it, maybe for legal reasons, that we're ever going to know exactly what it is. Something happened that was of such a level that they got rid of their showrunner the week before the show premiered. Like that is a pretty big thing to have happen. And it sucks because from everything that we are seeing, and hopefully we'll continue to see, like, he nailed it. He knocked it out of the park. So it's going to be a really interesting thing. I was saying to somebody, it feels like Bo DeMayo had the best and worst week of his life based on Twitter yesterday. like to get fired off of a show in such a dramatic fashion fucking sucks. To then see your show come out and have the entire world, like, I think it's at 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes right now still, a day later, which never happens. It's like, it's a wild ride. Do I think we're ever going to know what happened? No. Do I think they will figure things out, bring him back? Maybe. Yeah. Not likely. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Shannon, your thoughts on that? Do you think anything will happen?
I mean, I don't think there will be some big announcement from Marvel as to like, hey, this is the reason that we have done this. I think that decision was made, and that's kind of like, I mean, it's kind of like with Jonathan Majors. I mean, I don't think they came out with a big press release saying, hey, we've parted ways. I mean, it was just sort of confirmed from sources close to the studio that Jonathan Majors is no longer playing Kang the Conqueror. In terms of what he was able to do in the first two episodes, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, man. I mean, they're really well written. But as Vogel will be able to testify to, there's a lot of good writers out there. Yeah. There's a lot of good writers. And Bo DeMayo, despite being the captain of the ship, Bo DeMayo was not the only writer who worked on this. He was the guy calling the shots, but there were other people. And my guess is over the course of the writing of 2 seasons, there's probably going to be someone on his team that would be able to pick up that torch if they decide to keep going with it. I mean, the whole thing is a shame because, again, the episodes are so well written, and you can tell how much love he has for this property. Yeah. But ultimately, whatever went down, it was substantial enough to take him off of it.
Yeah, fair point. We would leave on a positive note here. The music, the remixed theme song, the remixed opening. I mean, a lot of people made a funny comment, like, and even our friend of the show, Tim Sheridan, and our friend in real life said, I don't know why you even put a skip intro button on this thing. And a lot of people said the same thing. So, Michael, your thoughts on the new remixed intro and the music throughout the series, 2 episodes rather. Shannon, you as well?
I mean, look, if I don't know how new audiences are taking it, but if you grew up in the 90s, you hear that music come on, that theme song comes on, and you're fucking in. Like, you are all the way in. And it was pretty fantastic. And Tim is right. Like, I will never skip that intro. Ever in my life. I have watched it so many times on YouTube from the end of that series to now, and now that I got a new one with new little bits thrown in, like, I'm all in, baby. I'm like seeing Emma Frost running along with the villains at the end. Like,
Oh,
boy,
yeah.
I am on board for this season.
Okay.
I do think we need to talk about two of the bigger. Like, we should talk about the ending before we go. But yeah, go to Shannon about the music.
Music was great. I mean, even for someone that didn't know the show intimately from the 90s, I knew that theme song.
Yeah.
And the MCU knows that theme song too, because they have used that stinger 2 separate times. So my hope when the mutants make their big screen debut in the MCU in their own film, man, I hope we get an orchestral version of that theme, because I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. Ron Wasserman did that original theme, of course. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. So, what do you want to add before we wrap up here?
Well, just the two big things. I mean, one, the Storm story arc, and then the ending of the second episode. So, like, with Storm, again, I mean, we talked about Cyclops, we talked about Magneto, we talked about a bunch of stuff. Like, Storm getting called out as an Omega level mutant and just seeing what Storm can actually do, like, they really got Storm right. And this is why everybody loves Storm. Like, to like turn the desert sand to glass as she comes in to like sweep up some sentinels, like they set her at a power level that is exactly where she should be. And sometimes in the animated series or the movies, I'm looking at you, Halle Berry, she doesn't quite get there.
I agree.
And then to have her powers taken away and to build that arc again, coming right from the comics, like I think I saw a lot of people being like, how could you take Storm's powers away? And I just think that we're in for a really, really interesting, really fun arc for Storm this season. And then of course the end of the show, confusing a lot of people with Jean Grey just has her baby with Scott, and then Jean Grey shows up on the front doorstep. Like I don't know how much we want to say about what that is. Like I don't if we're going to not spoil it.
Yeah, I think we should spoil it, because if we're going to review it, we should talk about it next week if we're going to be reviewing these weekly on a new Geek Bite. So
fair. All right. Well, in that case, I will just say that if you just do a quick Google search, Cable is not actually Jean Grey's son. And so a pretty quick Google search will probably answer those questions for you. And because I know Johnny has seen the third episode, which Shannon and I have not, I think the third episode is going to answer those questions as well. So Google that. And then when we do our X-Men 97 review next week, we can talk more about what is happening with the two genes and how poor Scott is going to handle this. Because, boy, I don't know if he's built for that.
If you thought the last 2 episodes were bad shit crazy, the third episode is bad shit fucking crazy. Shannon, your thoughts on the Storm decision and the final moment there with the two genes?
I mean, as we've already said, X-Men is at its best when it is a soap opera. Mm-hmm. And in soap operas, people don't stay dead and powers don't stay gone for long. So for the folks that are kind of like, oh, why'd you take your powers away? The storytelling you're going to get from a depowered Aurora Monroe is going to be very, very, I'm guessing it is going to be very, very satisfying. And when she gets those powers back in some big, huge moment, you're going to be out of your chair and you're going to be happy. In terms of I don't want to say anything more about the other Jean Grey, because I know just enough to spoil something, and I just would rather not.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's definitely going to be addressed in the next episode. But I think it was great to bring up that, Michael, because I saw some people going, why'd you take Storm's powers away? It's like, you don't understand storytelling. You've got to take the power away. Someone was like, why don't you take Morph's power away? It's like, no, because that wouldn't have had the resonant power of someone like Storm losing her powers and us wanting to watch this journey so that when she gets them back, and remember, Scott's been the one that's been trying to leave. Scott's had the crisis of leadership. Scott thinks Magneto taking over, it means that Professor X didn't think Scott was good enough. Scott wants to go off with Jean and have the baby. So there's all these different things that are pulling the team leader away. What's Storm's role going to be as this goes along? And when she gets her powers back, what's that moment going to be like? Will she lead the new X-Men into the next season? I don't know. So there's a lot of questions here, but you pick the character that people are already invested in deeply so you can follow the journey and follow her story. That's why they did it with Storm and not someone like Morph, which I saw other people commenting on, which I thought was crazy. And yes, the double gene thing is a lot of fun in the next episode. That's all I'll say. All right. Any final words on these two episodes, gentlemen, before we wrap up here?
It's just great when something is so fucking good.
Yeah. And as someone who has seen only like scenes or one episode from the animated series, you will, if you've read the comics, I think you'll get it. And even if you haven't read the comics, you'll get the hints and the allusions and the references, and you'll be good to go, and you can do your research later. You can absolutely enjoy these without having seen one episode, I believe, of the X-Men animated series. All right, there you go, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the Geek Buddies. We appreciate it madly. As we kind of hinted at on Twitter, we will be doing reviews of X-Men 97 as we go along here on Geek Bites and see what those reactions are going to be like, but it'll be a lot of fun to dive into those. So look for those in the upcoming weeks. Shannon, what do we have to tell the people who are listening or watching us today?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey?
If you like talking movie trailers, video games, and awesome animated series, we're the place for you. And here's what you can do so that we can keep doing it. You can smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, check out all the amazing content that he has got right here for you to look at. Leave your comments below. I mean, we covered a ton of stuff today. So what do you think of everything from Alien to Popeye to Omega level mutants? Let us know in the comments below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and some comments so we go up in the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here of the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!
Hey!